Coming up just ahead on News 3 at 6, it is the one story everyone is talking about tonight. The massive warehouse fire blackening the skies and snarling traffic downtown. We'll give you the very latest in a live report. And speaking of traffic, there are more than a few transit problems caused by the massive blaze. We'll have a live report from the street level on where you should and shouldn't be driving as firefighters try to get this one under control. A live report is ahead.
And we have got complete Storm Team 3 coverage just ahead. Meteorologist Lee Haywood will have your wind forecast for the smoke plume, and I'll have your 7-day coming up in just a few minutes.
Well, Tracy, I was just told by the Savannah Fire Public Information Officer that the flames have erupted because it's a rubber fire, meaning that these flames will probably continue on for a long time. There are some cars that are going over the Talmadge Bridge, and traffic is very slow, and police, are saying if you don't need to go on the Talmadge Bridge today, just don't, because you can see that black smoke is right up there. So I can only imagine that those drivers are seeing that black smoke as they pass by, so it can cause for some dangerous situations.
All right, I talked with Georgia Ports Authority spokesman Robert Miller just a few minutes ago, and here's what he had to say.
Yeah, well, the fire started approximately 11:30. It is within one of our warehouses. The warehouse contains crude rubber imported for tire manufacturers in this state and this region.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Russ Riesinger here. We'll get you back to NBC's Olympic coverage from Sochi very quickly, but we do want to keep you updated on that breaking news of a large fire at the Port of Savannah that we have been following all afternoon. It's at a warehouse there. You can see they're hitting it with water in a number of spots, getting it here as well as here. They've got a firewall set up here. The whole idea is to keep it contained and keep it from spreading into this part of the building, and so far they have been able to do that.
Look, I want to show you what it looks like over downtown. Looks like the worst of storms is about to blow in, but that is actually just the smoke that is dispersing across the skies of downtown from this burning rubber. Now, contrast what you're seeing over downtown with the sunny skies over actually in the port area with the much thinner plume of smoke coming up. As you can see, it's just as it gets up in the air dispersing. And an interesting thing about that is that right here, and I live just a few blocks from here, you can't really smell the burning rubber. We all know that smell. It's not a very pleasant smell. But as that cloud disperses into the air, as you get further away from the fire, you actually smell it much stronger than you do right here near the fire.
Now, here's what we expect to happen. The temperatures are cooling this evening. We're going to get into a little bit of fire weather discussion. The temperature is 51 and cooling. Now, right now, the winds have shifted kind of like I thought they would. They were out of the north earlier. Now we're seeing more of an east-southeast wind. And we might actually see, as the winds become light and variable, a little bit of a shift to the south overnight. So here's some thinking for you. A very stable air mass. The winds are going to be light and variable tonight. It's going to be a cold night, creating a lot of what we call stability. During these times, smoke typically doesn't rise a lot except for the heat of the fire. The fire itself, likely tonight, because of the fire weather conditions, won't be as intense. Any smoke in the air will likely drop back closer to the ground. That's what Raquel was seeing out there, I think, is the smoke plume beginning to get a little lower. And bottom line is, if you live in downtown, maybe even midtown, as the night goes on, we may see some of that smoke a little closer to the ground. Also, visibilities may be reduced a little bit, and you might start to smell a little bit more of that fire. But I don't think it's going to be, again, terribly dangerous. But the recommendations from the health department, please take those in consideration if you have outdoor plans. Back to you, Tracy.
It was a comment that raised eyebrows nationwide.
Why don't you have the kids pay a dime, pay a nickel, to instill in them that there is, in fact, no such thing as a free lunch, or maybe sweep the floor in the cafeteria.
And led to an immediate clarification.
Well, I did not specify clearly that this was not an indictment on anybody in a particular socioeconomic group. This would be good for all children.
But while Savannah Congressman Jack Kingston has tried to move on, the dust-up got News 3 investigating. Thousands of pages of disclosures, expense reports, and federal disbursements to try to estimate just how many so-called free lunches a congressman like Jack Kingston and his staff might receive. We took the past 3 years. First, in official business. Kingston and his staff expensed nearly $4,200 in meals for business purposes to his congressional office, paid for by the American taxpayer. The numbers and sources of the meals get cloudy from there. Since 2011, Kingston has taken official trips to 4 continents as a member of the House Appropriations Committee. The trips entitle him to a generous per diem allowance, depending on the locale, sometimes hundreds of dollars a day. The total in per diems in the past 3 years on all these trips, more than $24,000. Free lunches? Perhaps not, but again, paid for by the American taxpayer.
I've always worked a 60 or 70-hour work week.
Kingston defended his own work ethic when we asked him if he thinks Congress and its members work hard. The House was in session for just 159 days last year.
I'm a believer that sometimes Congress not being in session, it's not a bad thing in itself.
And then there are the meals from third-party interest groups on trips we told you about last year to places like Israel, Turkey, and Costa Rica. Nearly $4,300 just in meals on this tab since 2011. The trips are billed as educational, but when a political interest group is picking up the check, it led us to ask Kingston if it's fair to ask who Congress is working hard for. He said voters can answer that question at the ballot box.
That's what representative democracy is about, is members going to Washington but coming home and answering the tough questions.
And finally, the big number. Kingston is now engaged in a statewide campaign for the U.S. Senate. Candidates raise millions of dollars, largely through fundraisers stocked with food and beverage. In the past 3 years, the Kingston campaign operation has reported at least $145,000 in expensed meals and catering for campaign events. $26,000 of that was expensed in meals at the exclusive, members-only Capitol Hill Republican Club in Washington.
Now, it is political contributors who pay for this food and beverage tab in donations to campaigns of all political stripes. In fact, the Supreme Court has already ruled in Citizens United that this is free speech. But Kingston says the discussion is about work ethic, so it again raises the question of who Congress really works hard to serve. In fact, we spoke to Kingston at a campaign stop at Bullock County Country Club with, that's right, isn't this a free lunch?
This is what we need in America. We need workfare over welfare. I learned a lot when I was 14 and 15 years old doing chores inside and outside the household. And as a result, I grew up with a good work ethic. It's hard in today's society to have a discussion where you want to challenge the status quo because of the I got you politics.
Tuesday night, it was another familiar scene. The bright lights of police cars and an ambulance pitted against the backdrop of night when so many crimes take place and the lives of so many families change.
To really find out that it was a 2-year-old child that got killed.
And that's what this story is about. A little girl, her family called Kiki, 2-year-old Kyasia Coleman Smalls, is dead.
I mean, what is it going to take for it to stop, you know? This 2-year-old lost her life, or, you know, I mean, come on.
Benny Pope lives just a few doors down from where little Kiki was shot. Bullet hole after bullet hole could be seen outside. Police say it appears someone inside was targeted.
They was after somebody, and that little girl was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
But for Pope, it's about more than stating the obvious. He wants something to change.
People's got to come together now. I mean, people need to start running behind the closed doors and come outside and get together and make things happen. Police can't do it all on their own.
Still, Pope admits he's not really sure what coming together looks like these days. He just knows he doesn't want to see more crime scenes.
Police say often that no one will tell them things. Do you think people should be more willing to tell police what they know?
Exactly. Instead of talking with other people, you understand? Talk to the police.
Pope is hoping that anyone who knows anything will come forward, and soon. And he has a message for the shooter.
Person, be a man. You killed an innocent child. Step to the stage and go turn yourself in.
What exactly can we see now from those cameras? Does it give us any clues to why Smith was shot and killed? WSAV crime expert Jerry Long sat down with News 3's Andrew Davis to break down the video frame by frame.
Both officers each have an arm, and then the third officer is at his feet. And so then the struggle ensues.
When you get into that struggle, how careful do you have to be as an officer?
You don't want somebody to go underneath them for 2 reasons. One, they can latch onto themselves and you'll never get your hands apart, or they might have something underneath them or in their waistband that you don't know. It appeared to me that he was trying to pull his hands underneath them.
There's no audio on this.
No. You would hear what the officers were telling the subject. You would hear them identify themselves. Hopefully you would hear what was being said as they're struggling on the ground, what the subject may have said. Audio, gives you more of context.
We couldn't tell you whether they would have felt anything that would
No.
have been on his body.
No, there was a gun found at the scene, so we know that there is another gun. If it was on his person, and if you look at him standing in the window or as he's going out to the car, the pants are in fact very baggy. So it's very possible it could have been in his crotch. It's very possible it could have been somewhere under his shirt. You would believe that the officers would find it, but the search appeared to be a little cursory.
When you were in a struggle with someone like that, you wouldn't know and you wouldn't be feeling around.
No, your focus is control. Your focus is to get the cuffs on the individual and to stop the fight.
With the situation the way it was in the store, would you as an officer give him a full search instead of a pat-down?
And this particular subject, Charles Smith, in fact, was known to have used firearms in multiple incidents. You would make every effort to make sure that he is not carrying one at the time of his arrest. You don't know what the subject's mindset was. You know, he's a convicted felon. He knows he's going to jail for 6 or 7 warrants, serious felonies, that he's going to go back for a serious time. So his mindset is, I am not going back to jail. As he's up against the vehicle, as they're beginning his search, it's obvious that he's ready to get that pat down over, that he's moving towards the car, getting ready to get into the car, when most people don't want to get into a police car, particularly if they know they're going to jail.
So these officers didn't do the proper job?
It looks like there was somewhat of a failure, yes.
Well, the video shows no visible sign of the gun that authorities say Smith had at the time of his arrest, and that raises concern among his family and supporters. They gathered at Mount Carmel Baptist Church directly across from where Smith was killed this morning. Reverend Leonard Small called for Officer David Janot to be fired immediately. He also said the family and supporters have concerns with GBI presentation to City Council that took place yesterday. That presentation delved into Smith's past.
The GBI decided it was reasonable to bring up videos off of YouTube. What does that have to do with a man being shot to death on Augusta Avenue in the middle of the day? That's not evidence.
Reverend Small also questioned how there could be no video of the shooting since there was a second Metro Patrol car following the one that Smith was riding in, but Metro Police do not have dash cams.
We have the entire video of Charles Smith's arrest showing 3 different angles from security cameras on our website. Just go to WSAV.com and search arrest video.
And there was more controversy tonight after several people attending another protest for Smith claimed that they were sprayed by mosquito control.
I am upset. We was doing a peaceful demonstration. Someone had to authorize that helicopter to fly above.
Now, those taking part say they were protesting peacefully when the mosquito control chopper flew by at a low altitude and sprayed. Some claim they got it in their eyes. Mayor Jackson and several council members were there at the time and will be following up on this tomorrow.
This fire was massive when firefighters arrived here. It seemed the whole building was engulfed in flames. We can see now that it's out, the huge scorch marks on the back. The back porches actually fell off. The worry was that there was someone inside. Savannah firefighter public information officer Mark Keller, if you saw the last interview with him, said that there were conflicting reports. Initially it said that the building was vacant, but when they arrived on scene that there was a man here who said that he lived inside but did make it outside. That fire burned so hot it did jump right next door and caught the attic on fire, and those people had to be evacuated, but they're okay. Right now, Bull and Drayton Streets are closed between 37th and 39th.
An ethics complaint filed with the Georgia Government Transparency and Campaign Finance Commission late Tuesday alleges that David Simons, a candidate for board president of Savannah-Chatham County Public Schools, continued to act as a local government lobbyist to the school district as recently as 3 weeks ago and years after he stopped registering with the state as a lobbyist. As its principal evidence, the complaint cites emails obtained through an open records request with Savannah-Chatham Public Schools, emails I authenticated with a school district spokesman. On April 16th, Simons writes to School Superintendent Thomas Lockamy, quote, "Per our discussion today, these are potential dates when Reeves Worrell would like to sit down for coffee with you," unquote. Reeves Worrell is a Savannah construction company and subsidiary of J.E. Dunn Construction, who Simons admitted in a phone conversation with WSAV is a client of his political consulting firm. In another email the next day to Lockamy and the 5 Caucasian members of the school board, Simons writes about the district's commitment to directing construction contracts to minority and woman-owned business enterprises in the selection of a contractor for a new Otis Brock Elementary School. Quote, "This needs to end sooner than later, where these unscrupulous minority contractors hold the school board and the legitimate contractors over a barrel," unquote. The ethics complaint also includes screen captures from Simons' political consulting firm's website, which bills itself as, quote, "a group of proactive, creative government affairs businesses," unquote. On Simons' website bio, he touts his experience as a corporate lobbyist. The complaint cites another website section which promises services that can, quote, "defend against onerous legislation, secure appropriations, or expand a business into uncharted waters," unquote. All activities characterized by lobbying. But according to the complaint and the Government Transparency and Campaign Finance Commission website, Simons has not registered as a lobbyist since 2011. The Georgia Code defines lobbyist as, quote, "any natural person who, for compensation, is hired specifically to undertake influencing a public officer or state agency in the selection of a vendor to supply any goods or services to any state agency," unquote. Which is the crux of the complaint, which alleges, quote, "Mr. Simons was acting as a lobbyist for the interest of another in approaching these officials," unquote.
First of all, we're told there's no danger to local drinking water. Now, several experts say it's not so much that the data is wrong as how some are interpreting it. Still, when it comes to the Savannah River, what happens up and down this waterway can affect us all. The June report from the group Environment Georgia says up to 5 million pounds of toxic pollution was dumped into the river in 2012. Now, that includes preservatives like nitrates. In high quantities, they can be especially harmful to children. Much of the problem is in the Middle River Basin, which ends below Augusta. Now, since we're downstream, we wanted to know more about what's happening upstream and why some who know this river are watching with more concern.
It's 400 miles total, but from Augusta to Savannah is 200.
Tanya Badatanabas makes a point of going up and down the Savannah River. As river keeper, she knows its beauty. And the water's really blue. It doesn't look polluted.
No, and it's actually really not right here.
She takes us to a place called the Shoals.
And up until this point, really the main economy on the river is based on recreation. In Savannah, them saying, you know, I'm not getting into the Savannah River is really a hard concept for me to grasp because this is the Savannah River that I know. And all the coal ash is
the river she knows, but also is concerned about. Right now, we're just upstream from Augusta.
Once we get into Augusta, we shift the way that we use the river, and that's when it becomes industrial.
Then we go downstream and within a few minutes can see several discharge pipes.
Once you get to the outfalls and down below that, that's where that water quality really kind of plummets. Lots of nitrogen, lots of phosphorus, everything from arsenic, chlorine.
First, it's a city water outflow pipe, then a discharge pipe from a South Carolina plant. Remember, the river is shared by 2 states.
With a coal plant, you're talking mostly heavy metals.
When I say the discharge looks pretty clean to me, she says I might not want to take a drink. Still, an important point here, this is legal.
All of the outfalls that we're seeing, these are permitted outfalls, right? So the state has made an agreement with the companies how much they're going to dump in.
Of course, industries are required to treat the water that they return to the river, but Badatanabas says no discharge can be completely chemical-free. Next, we go back to the Georgia side, to the outflow pipe of DSM Chemicals.
This is the single largest outfall in the state of Georgia by far. 3.6 million tons of effluent into the Savannah River right here every single year, which is half of everything that comes into the Savannah River happens right here.
But some experts say the report did not consider the pollution dilution effect.
So here again, we're talking about the amount of discharge going into a river versus the amount of water that's actually in the river.
The river does have a huge volume of water, tens of millions of gallons a day. But for the riverkeeper, it's about balance. She says already there are 48 industries with permits to dump into the Savannah River, compared to just 1 permit on the Ogeechee River. She'd like to see more people in our area paying attention.
Where does their drinking water come from? the Savannah River.
We do get water from the Savannah River.
Heath Lloyd is the City of Savannah Water Resources and Public Works Operations Director. He says every day about 30 million gallons of water is drawn from the river and treated here.
In general, about 80% of it goes to the industry.
But the remaining 20% is for residential use.
And I do think the awareness that report brings, though, to the discharges in the river bodies, not only Savannah River, is a great thing for the citizens. But today I would tell the citizens, absolutely your water is safe.
As far as the report showing a big level of nitrates, he says it's not affecting local water quality, and they do daily testing to prove it.
And so the levels of nitrate are extremely low.
Then he took us to their testing lab.
We do approximately 136,000 tests every year. We know there are things in the river, this balance between industry and using it as a potable supply. My challenge, or our challenge, is to constantly measure it to make sure if any of those levels get too high, that we respond in the appropriate way. And that's why I really think it's important to focus on the number of tests that we run.
Back on the river, Bonatanaba says she doesn't expect plants to shut down. She knows they're important for the economy, but she says the river should be important too.
What's really important is that we really understand the different choices that we've made in the way that we use this river. We have to understand what we're giving up by doing that. And what we're giving up is a certain amount of water quality or an increase in treating water so that we can drink it.
To find out more about this issue, you can see the full report from June and more from my interviews in my story at WSAV.com. Joanne Merrigan, WSAV News 3.
We found a perfect illustration of the problem. Frozen tree limbs falling like rain, landing on power lines, and many times they're taking those power lines out and cutting people off from electricity, plunging hundreds of thousands in the dark.
Russ, well, it's raining right now, but all of this ice is just forming on these plants and trees. Just take a look at this branch right next to me. It is covered with icicles.
You see that color pink? That is freezing rain, and it's happening over the northern edge of counties like Jenkins, Screven, and especially Allendale, also over parts of Colleton County. This is what falls, and then the ice starts to accumulate. What we expect to happen is that later tonight, we have all of this rain here to the southwest. You see that? It's going to head our way into the coastal empire and low country later tonight. Also at night, what happens? It gets colder. So the rain showers move in, and then it changes over to that freezing rain mix. So because of that, all the warnings and advisories will keep up tonight and will continue until tomorrow morning at 10.
A flag is raised in this peaceful setting, the quiet, a sharp contrast to the sounds of war that many may still carry with them. The sight of stone and crosses that bear so many names bring back so much.
When I was on the Okinawa invasion, Easter Sunday morning, 1945, and we're blessed to be here.
A time for recognition, especially for World War II veterans still left. "91-year-old Ed Abernathy struggles to stand, but says being honored is still meaningful.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful ceremony.
Mr. Abernathy, like so many of his generation, didn't always talk about his service, but his son knows enough.
He landed on Guadalcanal, and he walked off of Guadalcanal.
Ed Abernathy and Jim McNear went through World War II and then Korea together. Now as old friends, they have a simple message.
It's a real honor to be here and remember those that have gone on before us.
From World War II and Korea to Vietnam.
I'm thinking about all the fellas that I served with that passed away, that didn't make it home, and their families and the hardship that they are experiencing.
To Iraq and Afghanistan. General Mike Murray, commander of the 3rd ID, says today should be less about shopping and vacations and more about what this site means.
It's really on the backs of our veterans, and especially the 1.3 million that have given their lives for this country, that we can do all that we can do in this country.
It's a ceremony that comes once a year, but for veterans, it's about an experience they've carried for a lifetime.
Freedom is not cheap. It doesn't come free. We have to pay a price for our freedom. What an honor it is.
Joanne Merrigan, WSAV News 3.
We're holding you responsible
for this.
Another Chatham County Commission meeting, more silence, but that's not good enough for thousands online. So we asked again why nothing has been done about Commissioner Yusef Shabazz. Good evening, everyone. It is Friday, October 10th. I'm Russ Riesinger.
And I'm Joanne Merrigan. In tonight for Tina, thank you for joining us. Well, we begin tonight with a story we have been following for you for weeks now. Since the County Commission's last meeting, nearly 2,300 people have let their digital voices be heard in an online petition. That petition was started by a local educator on MoveOn.org in part, and it calls for a public apology from Commissioner Shabazz and censure from other elected officials.
Well, WSAV News 3's Martin Staunton went to today's commission meeting wondering if public pressure might sway any of these elected officials.
I approached Yusef Shabazz before the commission meeting. He asked to speak outside the meeting room, then refused an on-camera interview. Following the meeting, we went to the commission chair, Scott.
Why would you expect it at this meeting, since we had a meeting 2 weeks ago, right after he made those comments, and you did not expect them at that meeting?
I guess it was expected at that meeting. It didn't happen. It didn't happen again today. Is anybody going to say anything to him?
You didn't show up for it.
I wasn't here for that, but I'm just here asking that question today. It was in an editorial in the paper this morning.
Yeah. But let me tell you how I feel about it.
Okay.
I thought his comments were wrong. And I personally think that he probably owed the Stowe owner an apology.
Scott may feel that way personally, but expressed reservations about the validity of the well-publicized online petition.
I view that online petition, and some of them are even out of state and out of county, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay.
It's a MoveOn.org petition.
Finally, I tried one more time with Commissioner Shabazz.
Mr. Shabazz, any comment?
No comment, no comment.
You don't want to say anything about, in return, there's a petition online with thousands of people. You can turn your back all you want to, sir, but there's a petition online that's asking for an apology. What's your response to that petition?
Come on.
Mr. Shabazz, seriously, are you going to walk away?
That's the only answer it seems anyone will get. Reporting in Savannah, I'm Martin Staunton, WSAV News 3.
We did some checking on Chairman Scott's comment saying the petition is not legitimate because of where some of the signers lived. Of the 2,282 signatures, more than 75% are signed by people who do live here in Chatham County. And we'll link you to that petition on our website. Just click on links on the home page. OSHA inspectors were back on the scene today in West Savannah after a 2-alarm fire late yesterday. It happened at American Packing and Crating. One employee suffered minor burns and told authorities he was filling a propane tank when the fire erupted and quickly spread. Well, News 3 investigated, found out that company has been cited by OSHA for violations in the past. WSAV's Joanne Merrigan is here now with details. Joanne?
Yeah, that's right, Russ. A spokesman from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration told me that inspections in the past few years did turn up some repeated violations, including storage of flammable liquids. Several inspections were conducted by OSHA after complaints. After yesterday's fire, we're told OSHA went to the company today. OSHA says a serious violation is where there's a substantial probability that death or serious physical harm could result from a hazard. In May of 2010, there were 5 serious violations, including an obstructed exit route and no fire extinguishers near propane tanks. In July of 2011, there were 3 serious violations, including failure to protect a diesel storage tank from struck-by hazards and no fire extinguishers near the storage tank. In May of 2012, there was 1 violation. And in January of 2013, 2 violations, including an issue with a propane storage tank. OSHA says there have been 3 repeat violations, failing to protect diesel storage tanks from vehicular traffic, blocked exit routes, and no fire extinguishers near diesel storage tanks or propane gas containers. But right now, that boat is still stranded. News 3's Greg Goldberg joins us now live from the Atlantic Ocean overlooking that vessel. Greg?
That's right. The Escapade has been stranded for 17 hours now. If you take a close look, you can see it in plain sight that it actually ran aground there at 1 o'clock this morning. It's moved very little, if at all, ever since. Well, rescue crews have been hard at work all day trying to free this vessel, but obviously it hasn't worked.
Well, this afternoon, a Coast Guard helicopter flew over and hoisted 4 of the passengers off the stranded ship. Well, all the remaining 114 passengers and crew members were ferried back to shore. So again, that ship still remains beached on a sandbar right now, waiting for crews to come salvage it as soon as possible. Also out on the water tonight is Ian Margold. He joins us from a boat just beyond the stranded vessel. And tell us, Ian, what are you seeing right now out there?
The fact that one community gets the opportunity to have frequent fire inspections and other communities are looked over is just absolutely wrong.
That was State Senator Lester Jackson last year, upset and ready to fix the problem. But after repeatedly asking for status updates, News 3 has learned that up until a few weeks ago, nothing had been done. Inside Savannah's limits, inspections are handled by city fire marshals. But the 22 Chatham County schools outside the Savannah city limit still aren't getting regular fire inspections by state fire marshals. Take Groves High School, for instance. The last inspection on file for Groves is 5 years ago, 2009. The superintendent of Savannah Chatham County Public Schools, Dr. Thomas Lockamy, says something must be done. But nothing has changed. In fact, when I asked some fire departments near schools outside Savannah if anyone has approached them for help, the answer, no. Would you be willing to help out in case they weren't able to go out to certain schools?
Yes, we would, because it will make us a little more familiar with the schools and what's in them besides doing just a pre-fire plan.
So why not ask? Dr. Lockamy claims state legislation must come first.
It requires some statutes that require, various municipalities, and so in a county that has several different cities, you really need an opportunity from the state to say it's okay to work to make that happen.
Something has to happen. The State Fire Marshal's office simply isn't equipped. It has only 14 fire marshals responsible for 2,600 public and private schools in Georgia, as well as other buildings. It looks like if we want change, local control is our best bet. Recently, Senator Jackson began meeting with the city, county, and superintendent.
They say one fire marshal can probably cover 30 schools within a course of a year. And we don't have quite 30 schools that need to be inspected. So that might be the salary of a part-time fire marshal.
And the Savannah Professional Firefighters Association might prove to be an attractive option.
I've talked to a fire union in the city of Savannah. They will do fire inspections at some schools outside the city of Savannah as one of their community service pieces.
Additional training might be necessary, but it may also be the most cost-effective solution.
If it's some program that we can develop and do on a frequent basis, then we're helping the school board out, we're helping, the senator out, and we're helping the children.
As time continues to tick on this unresolved issue, Senator Jackson is setting a deadline.
We will start seeing change before the school year begins in September.
We'll be there as the countdown begins. In Chatham County, Raquel Rodriguez, WSAV News 3.
As early as 2009, a full 2 years before they would ask Chatham County for a $183 million bond issue, Memorial Hospital appeared to have a problem. The details come from a civil complaint joined by the federal government earlier this month. November 2009, Memorial's board calls a meeting of their Personnel and Compensation Committee to discuss their alleged overpayment of doctors. Board member Michael Kegler asks how, quote, losing $1 million a month on physician practices would affect the hospital. The following year, May 2010, Kegler helps the hospital devise a new payment plan, which physicians reject. Committee minutes, also in the Fed's complaint, recognize the hospital is overpaying doctors. Kegler, quote, wants to see the worst case scenarios of revenues if doctors leave the hospital and the hospital loses referrals. That these are the actions of a Memorial Hospital board member are not surprising. But Michael Kegler was and still is Chatham County's assistant county manager.
I think there's a stunning lack of transparency in what I consider to be good government. There are lots of people with pieces of information who should have passed it on and didn't.
And yet, by December 2011, just weeks after Memorial asked Chatham County to help it refinance its debt by underwriting that $183 million bond issue, Kegler opts to step aside from the hospital, that is, telling the county attorney in a memo, quote, in order to be fair to the county as well as Memorial and not give the appearance of any conflict, unquote. And yet, when we requested, Chatham County could turn up no correspondence or work product informing county commissioners of the potential civil penalties the hospital could face for alleged Medicare fraud. When I contacted Assistant County Manager Kegler to ask him about these apparent conflicts, he told me I had my timeline wrong. When I asked him about his actions on the Memorial Board, he referred me to the hospital's attorneys, even though he works for the county and no longer serves on the Memorial Board. Left unclear, we confronted Kegler in the hallway outside Commission chambers, where he immediately removed himself behind the door of his office. I didn't find any communication about what you found while serving on the Memorial Board to your superior, Mr. Abel, to any of the commissioners. I mean, did you convey any of that information?
I discussed it with Mr. Abel, so that's.
How? How did you discuss it with him?
We talked about it.
In fact, new County Manager Lee Smith confirmed to News 3 last week he couldn't find any correspondence from anyone about the potential exposure to civil penalties for alleged Medicare fraud. And Finance Director Linda Kramer told News 3 directly that when Memorial told her of the investigation, quote, no civil penalties were discussed, unquote.
All of these issues should have been raised and passed on to the county commission so that they could have made a fully informed decision.
But in March of 2012, 2.5 years after the feds say Kegler started helping Memorial change its compensation to doctors, the Chatham County Commission unanimously approved the $183 million bond issue for the hospital. According to the complaint, Memorial now faces up to $80 to $130 million in civil penalties if they're found liable in federal court. And if federal penalties send Memorial into default on the bond, Chatham County taxpayers would be on the hook for the balance, $167 million still outstanding, or some $17 million a year for more than a decade. I'm Dave Cartoonan, WSAV News 3.
Senator from Georgia.
Georgia's congressional delegation will tell you when it comes to port funding, some of the fault lies with the current White House.
Apparently, the administration would rather pay lip service to Georgians than deliver on their promises.
But is this about the WRDA bill or politics, or both? Let's go back. For years, everybody involved with the port project talked constantly about the WRDA bill.
What's important on the WRDA bill?
But it's got to get done.
The bill that will address the funding for the deepening of the Savannah River will be on the floor of the House this week.
WRDA provides approval for the cost of water projects nationwide. More importantly, it provides authorization to spend money on those projects. Republican Congressman Bill Schuster, chairman of the House Transportation Committee, says new legislation should be passed fairly often.
Historically, as I think many in this room know, water resource legislation has been enacted every 2 years.
But he says a new bill hasn't passed for 7 years.
Since 2007, Congress has been silent on the needed reforms and has failed to take action.
In May of 2013, the Senate did pass a version of WRDA. Then later, the House passed a bill, but the bills were different. And since November, a conference committee has been working on a compromise. But no one's really criticized these members of Congress. And maybe it does take time for things to get done. This is important legislation.
If the administration wanted to fund this, they could.
Still, Georgia leaders, including Congressman Jack Kingston, who's running for Senate, say the port could have moved ahead by now. They say a compromise budget bill included funding for the Savannah port and became their Plan A.
WRDA is not Plan B, is it? You've been talking about WRDA for 7 years.
WRDA is Plan B. What had happened is when the vice president came to Savannah in September and said, come hell or high water, we're going to dredge this. Why are we talking about it? Blah, blah, blah.
I'm sick of this stuff. It's time we go.
Biden did say a lot of things that day, so who was he talking to? At least some in the conference committee act like he was talking to Congress.
Authorize these projects and get WRDA across the finish line.
Still, Kingston says the administration has not honored the intent of Congress in the compromise budget bill.
You know, after a while you get to thinking, well, maybe these guys just are political animals, and that's what I believe we're looking at right now.
If there is partisanship, perhaps there's plenty to go around. Senator Johnny Isakson recently used the issue of harbor funding not being in the new budget as a point in a fundraising letter. He did not mention WRDA in his letter. If you say, please tell me there's an ending here, there is. After 6 months, the conference committee has finally agreed, and WRDA will now go before the House and Senate for final votes. So if you favor port funding, most say you will soon see it approved. But here's my ending. It starts with a little girl named Rose, who's the daughter of WSAV photographer Arto Timo. Here she is at 1 year of age. Since Congress has tried to pass a WRDA bill, Rose has gone to preschool, learned to read, learned to swim, and is now in the 2nd grade. If history repeats itself, Rose will be in high school the next time a WRDA bill passes.
Live, on air, and online, this is WSAV News 3 at 6.
This could mushroom into one of the worst situations that this city has ever experienced. And we don't want that to happen.
Savannah Mayor Edna Jackson back in West Savannah again today, taking steps to ensure a rattled community stays calm following an officer-involved shooting. Good evening. It is Friday, September 19th. I'm Tina Tyus-Shaw.
And I'm Russ Riesinger. Thanks for joining us. Mayor Jackson will join us live in our studio in just a few minutes.
Our team coverage tonight begins with a recap of what we know about the incident from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation at this very moment.
Precinct, 1 unit from each precinct to respond to Newcastle and Augusta Avenue, Newcastle and Augusta Avenue.
We heard it over the scanners just after 11 yesterday. Additional officers being called to the crime scene in West Savannah. GBI investigators confirming police attempted to arrest 29-year-old Charles Smith. Handcuffed and put in a patrol car, investigators say within moments he managed to get his handcuffed hands to the front of his body and kicked out the window of a police car. Officers then saw Smith was armed. That is when he was shot and killed by Savannah Chatham Metro Police Officer APO David Janot. The officer is now on paid administrative leave.
Well, today community members have placed flowers, balloons, and other items at the site where Smith died yesterday. Meanwhile, his mother is calling for justice.
I just want everyone to know whatever the media and the Facebook pages, whatever's going on about my child's past has nothing to do with what happened to him today. He was shot down in handcuffs by the police, and that is unjust. He didn't deserve, not even a dog deserves better than that.
Today, an autopsy on Smith's body was scheduled at the GBI Crime Lab in Savannah, and we're still waiting on those results.
As events unfolded yesterday, crowds gathered in the area wanting answers from police and city leaders. Eventually, people formed a march throughout the neighborhood and to the police station on Lathrop Avenue.
Well, right now, another rally is set to begin, and News 3's Ian Margol joins us from Augusta Avenue. Ian, tell us what the atmosphere is like out there tonight.
Well, Russ, people had begun sort of congregating here behind me at Augusta Avenue and Eagle Street. Now, the rain did bring some of them away. However, they are congregating over at a church down at Augusta Avenue and Cummings, so that is where they will be meeting now. However, the one thing they say will not be changing, organizers are insisting this remain peaceful. Now, the plan for tonight's rally was to march down Augusta Avenue up to the precinct on Lathrop and come back here for more speeches, but as I said, because of the rain, those had to change a little bit. Smith's mother spoke to media yesterday, but as you just heard, today she will no longer be speaking out publicly about the incident. Several community leaders met today to garner support for her and Smith's friends and family.
We will come together as a people of faith to pray for the Smith family and to continue to call for justice in this tragic situation.
So like I said, this has cleared out a little bit over here. They are at the church now, but no matter what, even when it started raining and it was coming down pretty hard for a few minutes, I had people coming up to me saying, this will be going on, rain, shine, even snow. This will be going on so they can show their support and demand answers. Live on Augusta Avenue, Ian Margol, WSAV News 3.
Some neighbors we spoke to yesterday did compare this shooting to the shooting in Ferguson, Missouri. But not only do the details of the shootings vastly differ, so does the makeup of the two cities' minority representation. Savannah has an African-American mayor. Ferguson's mayor is white. Savannah has an African-American police chief. 5 of 8 Savannah council members are black. Only 1 of Ferguson's 6 council members are African-American. And 137 of Savannah's 541 police officers are black. In Ferguson, there are 3 out of 53.
All this despite Ferguson having a much higher African-American population.
But like it or not, Savannah seems to have been thrust into the national spotlight now.
And leaders are trying to reassure the public, but is it working? WSAV's Joanne Merrigan is taking a closer look at that. Joanne?
Yeah, that's right, Tina. Supporters of the Charles Smith family said today his death does bring Savannah into the national conversation about the use of force and excessive force. However, since yesterday, Acting Police Chief Juliet Tolbert has spent a lot of time in the West Side, offering residents transparency. And she made a point of being at the meeting today of local ministers. And once again, she addressed the community.
We are also grieving the loss of this young man. We would not have wanted this incident to have occurred. But it did occur, and at this point we simply have to get to the facts ourselves of what transpired.
But several West Side residents today brought up to me other cases where young African Americans have died in police incidents. Anthony Smasham, who was shot in May of 2007 as he ran away from police. Another case in 2007, David Willis, who was shot after police said he tried to run over an officer. And the 2010 case of Larry Wall, who was shot after he called police to his own home and then died in a scuffle with an officer.
So we don't have any faith in the police department. And I know that the mayor said what she said, that we're going to let the authorities do their job, but she worked for the city of Savannah. All of them work for the same agency.
Well, all details on the Smith case are not clear yet, but one thing does appear to be clear. The issue of distrust will not be going away, even with promises of transparency. Joanne Merrigan, WSAV News 3.
Well, Mayor Edna Jackson is joining us now to address public concerns.
And Mayor, as we just heard in Joanne's story, there are a lot of people who seem to have a distrust of the police department. It's almost an us versus them attitude. Why do you think that is, and how do you go about changing something like that?
I don't know, but the only thing we can do is to go out and to be with the residents and to let them know what we're going to do. As I look over this film today, people that are perpetrating that they live in the area and they really don't live in the area. So if we can just get the residents of that community to remain calm, we have done everything that we said we would do. We said as soon as we got a report from the GBI, which we did on last evening, would be given to the community. We did that. The only thing that we have asked is that they continue to work with us and trust in us and what we're doing, and not let other people come in and take over and cause us and reap havoc in that area.
Mayor Jackson, it was apparent yesterday that city leaders arrived as quickly as possible. What drove you to West Savannah, and why did you feel it was important to be there?
It was important for me to go out there because these are residents of this community. It was a sad day in our community yesterday, and if I would have sat back and not done anything, that I would not have been comfortable with me. I care about the people, about what is happening in our neighborhoods. That's why I went out there. It wasn't should I, or if I, or whatever. It was that I had to go. And this is what, after we sent Alderman Van Johnson, and it's his district out, then I said, and we received some reports, the city manager and I went out to be with the people. The people need to know that we really care and that they can trust us in the thinking and what we're trying to do. And the trust comes because our police chief immediately called for a GBI investigation.
All right, Mayor Jackson, we thank you so much for coming here on the set live with us this evening.
Thank you.
Well, the investigation continues into yesterday's events. We are learning much more about both the man accused of pulling the trigger and the man who shot and killed him. News 3's Andrew Davis did the legwork on this one. He joins us now from the newsroom with more. Andrew?
Advanced Police Officer David Janot is a 10-year veteran of the force who before yesterday had more trouble with his driving skills than anything outside the car. Janot has several written reprimands after being responsible for 3, quote, preventable collisions. The last of those was in 2008. But other than missing a day in court in 2010, Janot was described in several parts of the personnel file as a leader on his shift and an excellent candidate to carry a taser. Now, we learned even more about the man Janot shot, Charles Smith, also known as Mr. D. A father of 4 with a baby on the way. That's how friends describe Charles Smith, but police know Smith much differently. We pulled his criminal record, and he has 16 different arrests over almost a decade. The charges range from aggravated assault to cruelty to children to simple battery. But the one that may stand out the most is interference with government property. Back in 2005, the incident report shows that after Smith was arrested and in the back of a police car, he was, quote, knocking out the back windows with his head. That's a similar claim to what the GBI released yesterday. Smith's Facebook page shows Smith's alter ego as Mr. D. That's where he describes his work as robbery, extortion, and all types of effery. There are also pictures of him in prison where Smith has gone for extended periods 3 different times. Then there's the rap video titled I Might. The video shows him committing criminal acts and talks about and shows how he could hide a gun under his shirt in several different places. Now, yesterday, before the shooting, officers were arresting Smith on 6 different warrants, including several traffic violations, fleeing to elude police, and theft by larceny. But it'll be up to the GBI to figure out if Smith's actions led to his own death or if APO Janot was in the wrong. Andrew Davis, WSAV News 3.
One of the big questions many are asking, how could police miss the victim's gun? WSAV's crime expert Jerry Long, a former Metro police major, gives us perspective on police procedure. She demonstrated how a suspect is usually searched. Take a look. It is on WSAV.com. Just search suspect frisk. Well, today we have received a verdict in another big case we've been following since the 2012 murder of an 8-year-old on Hilton Head Island.
Still to come, we're going to take you live outside the courtroom for the latest on that trial.
Yeah, we do have some scattered showers and storms across the area, but we also have some accidents. So here is the very latest with our time saver traffic. I want to zoom in and show you some of the accidents in particular that are causing a bit of a rough Friday evening. The first of which, Telfair at West Gwinnett Street. We also have, not too far away, this is going to be Highway 80 at Cherry Street. Now, because of the rain, starting to see a little bit of a slowdown and a backup on I-16 westbound. The traffic was at 65. Now it's at 35 to 40 miles per hour. A few slowdowns here and there on 278 and 170 around the low country, but as a whole, we're looking fine for your Friday evening commute home.
Now, Storm Team 3 weather powered by Hargray Live Titan Radar.
Oh, what a day. It's raining outside right now, Matt. And check out these fascinating pictures of lightning this morning shot by photojournalist Chris Murray.
Pretty amazing. Yeah, we had a pretty big storm complex this morning. A lot of instability, energy, and that's what these storms are feeding off of. And how about that? That was looking east from Abercorn Street. And we could see a repeat performance tonight. It's not out of the question, but here's how we're shaping up right now with our Savannah cams. 80 degrees, scattered showers, even a few thunderstorms. High temperature in downtown Savannah at 82, at the airport briefly, and I'm talking briefly, we hit 86 degrees, but it will be a struggle to even hit the lower 80s for your Saturday. And the reason, there's a very good reason for that. We're going to have a lot of cloud cover. We're going to have periods of rain. It's going to be breezy. Another repeat performance possible as we head throughout your Saturday. So here is the very latest with our live Hargray Titan 3 radar. Showers and storms extend from the northeast down towards the southwest. The strongest complex of storms is around Statesboro and just out towards the north, right along 301. Some heavy rainfall. Let's throw on the rainfall rate around 3 inches per hour. And more than likely, if you drive smack dab right into it, probably it's going to be one of those scenarios where you barely see the front of the car. More scattered storms out towards the east, Chatham County, right around the border of Jasper County. These storms are coming in from the northeast, moving southwest. This storm over the past 15 to 20 minutes has been intensifying around Chatham County as it moved towards the southwest. Within the red, rainfall rates 2 to 3 inches per hour. And yes, we now do have some lightning strikes. Current temperatures upper 70s to lower 80s. Rain cooled in Bluffton, 77 degrees. Out towards the west, although yes, we have the storms, it's not feeling too bad around Statesboro at 74 degrees. So more scattered storms throughout the rest of the evening and overnight. Some of these storms could pack a quick punch with heavy rain, a few lightning strikes, and some gusty winds. Low temperatures near 70 degrees. So hour by hour with our Futurecast, if you have any Saturday morning plans, here's how it's going to look. Widespread showers and storms. Best rain chances will be along our coastline, and the good rule of thumb will be east of I-95. You could still see some rain west of I-95, but I want to show you 24-hour computer model estimates. The brighter colors are more rainfall. You can really see the trend here. Best rain chances and the heaviest rainfall potential will be across our coastal communities. Keep that in mind if you have any outdoor plans. It's going to be breezy as well. The wind gusts could top 20, even 25 miles per hour, 82 degrees. That's about it. So yes, we will have better rain chances, but it won't be feeling too bad out there with possibly some of our coolest high temps in quite some time. My recommendation for the marine forecast, don't take out the boat. There will be a small craft advisory. The waves will be up and it will be downright windy. 7-day forecast, your Sunday is looking a lot better. Rain chances go down. We're going to have more sunshine and the temperatures go up as well. And although Monday will be the first day of fall, it ain't going to feel like it. 90 degrees. A front moves in during the second half of the day. So Tuesday, Wednesday into Thursday will be cooler. Still pretty warm, 82 degrees, as scattered showers and storms re-enter the forecast. Rain chances at around 30 to 40%.
All right, so Friday night football tonight, there is a chance we're going to be seeing some rain. Huh?
Yeah.
That's too bad, Russ.
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
Thanks. Well, tonight we have a verdict in the trial of a man accused of murdering an 8-year-old. A live report next.
You're watching WSAV News 3 on your side at 6. With Tina Ty Shaw, Russ Riesinger, and Chief Meteorologist Chris Allred. WSAV, honored with the Edward R. Murrow Award for overall excellence.
The verdict in a murder trial is handed down in Beaufort.
Tyrone Robinson is the man who stood before a judge this week accused of shooting and killing 8-year-old Khalil Singleton 2 years ago. Low Country reporter Ashley Holland was in the courtroom today. She joins us now live from Beaufort with the verdict. Ashley?
Tyrone Robinson was found guilty of murder today. That verdict was handed down just before 2 o'clock this afternoon, which wrapped up the week-long murder trial. After facing the courtroom for a week-long murder trial, the jury handed down their decision on Friday afternoon. Tyrone Robinson was charged with murder in the shooting death of 8-year-old Khalil Singleton in 2012. Singleton was playing in his grandmother's Allen Road yard in Hilton Head when he was shot from crossfire in Robinson's gun battle with 2 other men. And today, the jury finds Robinson guilty of murder.
They did exactly the right thing, and I think they did exactly what I asked them to do, which is to return a verdict that speaks the truth. I believe they did that.
The prosecutor says evidence that Robinson killed Singleton included Robinson leaving the scene and washing his hands in vinegar. Robin's defense attorney told the jury the other 2 men involved in the shootout with Robinson likely killed Singleton and disposed of the gun they used.
Today is a little vindication I do have for justice. I feel that justice has been served.
But the jury ultimately found Robinson's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And Singleton's family wept tears of relief at the verdict, calling today bittersweet.
And my son didn't deserve none of this. My son was doing what he was supposed to do, out playing in the yard with his friends. And it just hurts. It hurts.
And Robinson is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But going forward, there are 2 other suspects in the shooting incident that killed Khalil Singleton who will also stand trial in the months ahead. The state will prosecute Aaron Young and Aaron Young Jr. in November for having a part in the shooting incident that shot and killed 8-year-old Khalil Singleton. Live in Beaufort, Ashley Holland, WSAV News 3.
Well, Statesboro police need your help finding a rape suspect. Clarence Hinson Lewis is 35 years old, 5 feet tall, 130 pounds. Lewis is accused in a rape that happened on Michael Street on September 13th. Now, if you have any information, you're asked to call police at 912-764-9911. New information in the federal gambling case against former Savannah Chatham Metro Police Chief Willie Lovett. Today, co-defendant Randall Roach Sr. was sentenced to 15 years in prison plus 3 years of supervised release. Roach accepted a plea deal and is expected to testify against the former chief. And you're watching WSAV News 3 on your side at 6.
We'll be right back.
Storm Team 3 meteorologist Lee Haywood met with kindergartners at Pulaski Elementary today. They asked great questions and learn cool new things about the weather. And if your kid is curious about the weather, we have the perfect opportunity for you. As part of our project with the Georgia Ports Authority, kids can send Storm Team 3 their weather-related questions. If we choose yours, you win a prize. Plus, teachers can sign their classes up for interactive tours of the WSAV studios. And go to WSAV.com and click on WeatherWise Kids under the Weather tab. You got cool prizes like this. You can't beat it. We've got our nice, awesome WeatherWise Kids lunchbox. You can't beat it. So, yeah, you win a prize. And once again, check that out on WSAV.com.
Nice. Well, I'm curious about the weather, too.
Yeah.
We all are.
We have a chance of storms again another weekend.
It's going to be one of those patterns for tonight all the way into Saturday. Kind of a nuisance, scattered showers and storms. If we have a chance to show that 7-day, your Saturday, 82 degrees. Best rain chances will be along and east of I-95. We all have a chance of rain, but best rain chances near the coast and looking a lot better, I promise you. By Sunday, 89 degrees. With a lot more sunshine.
All right, join us for News 3 at 10 on the CW13 and MyLC, and right back here for News 3 at 11.
Thanks for making WSAV your choice for news.
Good night.